Viswanathan Anand is an Indian chess grandmaster and a former 5-time world chess champion. He was born on December 11, 1969 in India. In 1988, he became the first person from India to be awarded the title of grandmaster, and he is one of the few players to have ever crossed an ELO rating of 2800, which he achieved for the first time in 2006. In 2022, he was chosen to serve as FIDE's vice president by the membership. Anand won the title of FIDE World Chess Champion in 2000 after defeating Alexei Shiro in a 6-game match. He held this title until 2002. In 2007, he won all the necessary tournaments to claim the title of the undisputed world champion, and he successfully defended his title against Vladimir Kramnik in 2008, Vasilin Topalov in 2010, and Boris Gelfand in 2012. He was defeated by challenger Magnus Carlsen in 2013 and again in 2014 after winning the 2014 Candidates Tournament. Both losses resulted in him losing the crown. The confrontation between Anand and Carlsen is the topic of discussion today. Magnus Carlsen, a Norwegian chess grandmaster, is a former 5-time world chess champion, 2013 to 2023, a current 4-time world rapid chess champion, and a 6-time world blitz chess champion. He also holds the record for the most world rapid chess titles with 6. Since July 1, 2011, Carlsen had been ranked at the top of the FIDE World Chess Rankings. He is second only to GARRY KASPAROV in terms of total time spent at the highest rated player in the world. His peak rating of 2,882 is the highest in the history of rating competition. Additionally, he currently holds the record for the longest unbeaten streak at the elite level in the classical chess. The battle between the two of the world champions, Magnus Carlsen and Viswanathan Anand, took place at the Tata Steel Chess India Rapid. Magnus starts with d4. Anand responds with knight to f6. Carlsen plays c4. Anand goes e6. Magnus allows Nimzo Indian by playing knight to c3, and Anand instantly pins the knight with bishop b4. Magnus plays knight to f3, inviting a transposition into the Ragozin, and Anand accepts. Magnus takes some time and places his bishop on g5. This move is part of the main line theory. A question is posed to the bishop. Would you like to capture on f6 or go back to h4? Both options are possible in the current position. Magnus chooses to return to h4, and Anand proceeds to castle. Magnus plays e3, intending to advance his bishop to d3, which is the normal method that you play, and Vishy plays bishop f5. The crucial move here is the queen moving to b3, but Magnus surprises with the relatively unknown knight on d2. This move is not part of theory, so you can see Vishay settling down in his chair, trying to remember his prepared lines. He then plays the most ambitious move in the game, g5, followed by bishop g3 and c5. As you can see, knight d2 did not develop a piece and moved the same piece twice in the opening, so Vishy took advantage of it. If bishop e2 had been played instead of h5, it would have been improved the position. Is this the move a bit slow? Is white not developed enough here? Magnus plays aggressively with knight bd7, which disrupts his progress. Bishop f4 attacks the pawn on h6. The most natural move here would be knight h7 to defend it. However, Anand opts for a counter-attacking move instead. He defends the pawn, but isn't interested in preserving it. Instead, he threatens to go to a4 and put more pressure on c3. Magnus responds with queen a5 and queen c1 is played to defend the pawn. Will he defend that pawn on h6 now? Magnus replies, I'm taking your pawn. So why don't we simply create the piece on h6 and move the knight from a4 back to its original position? Anand believes that in this position, his main advantage lies in his bishop on f5, knight on a4, and queen on a5. Magnus takes the rook, and now Anand must decide whether to recapture with his king or rook. He chooses to take it with his rook so that the king can potentially find shelter on f7 square. Vishy doesn't care about the rook on f8 and continues to focus on the c file. Wow, such an intriguing approach. Magnus plays f3, not only aiming for e4 at some point but also creating a square for his king on f2. He needs to figure out how to proceed. He could actually capture the pawn here with knight takes c3, or even start with b5. Black has excellent compensation here, and might even be slightly better, but Anand plays rook e8, which is not the best move in this position, as it allows Magnus to safely tuck his king away on f2. The rook 8 move is an act 2 one, but it does not fit it with the spirit up position. That was not the move. b5 was played by Vishy, and here it appears that he has missed a tactical shot of the Magnuses. Look at that. Magnuses know that he has something, and he plays e4. Now the queen on c1 is breathing. It can look at the g5 square and see that it has an opportunity to go there. In this position, d takes e4 was played, and the best move is knight takes e4. However, Magnus goes for knight takes c4 because f7 is not in its proper position, which he plays the intermediate move e3. Although the pawn can potentially go to e2, it is not as dangerous. Magnus takes his time, moves his king to g1, and now Anand has to waste a tempo to defend bishop e6. However, Vishy feels that he has counterplay by capturing on c3. Magnus plays d5, which is a slightly nervous move. He wants to defend the c3 pawn. If the bishop defies, there is queen f5 check in this position. Vishy contemplates whether to capture the pawn with the bishop or the queen. He finally decides to take with the queen, but the downside is that his c3 pawn is now defended by the white queen. Magnus plays rook e1, and Anand responds with queen d2, not leaving the c3 pawn there. Magnus plays rook e2. If black captures on c3 now, then queen takes c3, knight takes c3, rook c3, and white should be better. Vishy keeps his queen on c1, while Magnus brings his queen back, attacking the e3 pawn. Vishy plays g takes f3, trying to open up the g file for his rook. Magnus makes an excellent move with queen takes e3. Vishy takes on c3 with his queen, and Magnus wants to play g takes f3. The position remains quite complicated. But now that the king has a nice square on f2, Magnus is now an exchange up. Although there are very few pawns left on the board, this should be winning for white. He keeps his king safe on f2. The plan is to threaten a checkmate in one move with queen g3 check on e4. If the king captures it, then queen e5 can exchange the queens. So, Vishy plays king h6. Magnus responds with queen f4 check. The king moves to g7, and Magnus plays queen to e5, making an excellent move. There is no longer a queen g3 check as the queen is now defending that square. Vishy plays queen to h6, and Magnus knows he is very close. He can free up his rook on the e file by checking the initial king square on h8. The king moves to h7, and there comes the decisive blow. Rook takes e6. If the queen captures on e6, there is queen g7 made. If f takes e6, queen d7 loses the rook. Magnus wins, and Vishy resigns. It was such a complicated game, and the expressions on their faces tell it all. They now study a few lines. King h7, and here comes the blow. Rook takes e6. If the queen captures on e6, there is queen g7 made. What an intense and exciting game with some risky moves on both sides, but in the end, Magnus emerged victorious. Did you like it? Tell us what you think of the video in the comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting videos.